to episode 2, String Theories. From a misty presence to orbs of bright light, and whatever your region may call a Sasquatch, all things beyond normal. With my buddy over here, Josh Teague. Say hello.
Hi, Mike. Hi, guys. Welcome back.
You're going to spend a little bit of time with us talking about time. Ain't that right, Josh?
If you will.
Yes. If you will.
Exactly.
Josh, have you ever been a sleepwalker?
I have. Actually, sleepwalking, not so much. Maybe when I was a little intoxicated, but I have had some weird sleep stuff happen to me in the liminal state, like in that state between sleep. And I think we've talked about this before, Mike, but I'm also a sufferer or maybe a gifted one who has the sleep paralysis that happens often. Mm-hmm. And this is like something that happens to me at least once a year.
Wow.
Very intense. So if that, works its way into our conversation eventually, I'd love to talk about that as well.
That's really, it may very well, let's see that's what we do. We Josh and I, we talk about things that we find interesting in this kind of genre and make our connections.
And string them along.
String them along and then, also rock out a little bit.
Definitely rock out.
So, yeah, when I was a kid, I actually did sleepwalk. My mom would tell me I would walk into the living room and they would be watching television. And I would just walk out there and like super stiff, like with my arms down at my side and just looking like towards them. And then my mom said she would say, Michael. And then I would kind of turn towards her with my eyes closed. She'd go back to sleep. And then I would just turn around and walk back into my room.
Wow. You were almost like in a suggestive state, almost like when you're hypnotized.
Sort of, yeah.
Something. Hey, Michael, go back to bed.
She was able to do that, but I do not remember doing that, But the thing that's really interesting, because I've been kind of thinking about a lot of these subjects we're going to talk about tonight, and rather than boring you with an outline of what we're going to cover, we're just going to let it happen organically. But, sleepwalking, what if it's like you're sort of like in between dimensions? You're like traveling through space and time. You're through bent fabric, like of the universe. You're just able to cross over just a little bit.
I just love how interdimensionality keeps popping up in our conversations every time we do this.
Well, I think there's a lot of interesting connections to some similar subjects, such as interdimensionality and, or just like, magnetism, things that are just like, there's like weird things happening with electromagnetism, right?
Electromagnetism?
Yeah.
Specifically?
Yeah. Like people think like a lot of times UFOs operate on that energy.
I've heard that.
Ghosts, they use meters to try to see if there's a shift in the electromagnetic.
Pablo talks a lot about that, which we'll get into, of course, when we do our episode on UFO and ufology.
But what if it's like kind of like you're astral projecting just a little bit, and you're like leaving a little bit, and like you're out in another place, so you want to explore. It's like you're just running around doing cartwheels or something, but but I don't know. I guess you're not really that active. I just walked out and just turned around, When I
was in high school, my brother had a book on out-of-body experience. And it was kind of a thing because oh man, my parents would not want that book around because they were like pretty traditional, right? But I read it one day, and part of the suggestion it gave to you, if you wanted to participate in an out-of-body sort of experience, was to look into the mirror and stare at yourself naked for a long time and until you disassociated with your form.
Whoa.
Like where you would recognize your shape, your body, of course it's yours, you've seen it your entire life, but when it's there in front of you for so long and you spend a lot of time looking at it, you can kind of disassociate and see yourself outside of it.
Wow.
Maybe creep out a little bit subconsciously. And I'll tell you real quick about an experience I had. Excellent. I wouldn't call it maybe an out-of-body experience, but it's kind of a funny story. Do you remember the Singles soundtrack?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so there was a specific Smashing Pumpkins song that came on at the end of that soundtrack. And I can't remember, the name escapes me.
The song is called Drown.
Oh, yeah. No, but stop that real quick. Because it was later on in the song. There was this super psychedelic part that came swirling in. And this is when this whole experience unfolded. at the time, it was like one of the most psychedelic songs I had heard back then. And I remember turning off my lights in my room, and I wasn't like on drugs or anything like that. Just the music and that like experience of looking in the mirror. At one point, I felt myself lift up out of the chair and float up into the middle of the room. The only time I ever had that happen to me since then, or maybe before then, I can't remember date-wise, but was in a dentist chair when they gave me a bunch of nitrous oxide.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and that's a whole other story. So anyways, that was weird. That was like as close as I could say that I've ever come to like an out-of-body experience. And I think it's really funny that it's because of the Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah, it's true. Billy Corgan, he's responsible for a lot of things.
I blame you, Billy Corgan.
Yeah, I do too.
People think I'm a bit goofy, but I do think paint color actually changes the sound of a guitar. So I found through the years that certain paints sound different.
But what's really interesting as far as like, you know, being able to leave and like if you can travel through time, it's like almost like it's like your body can't do that. It's like because just like time gets sucked into the funnel or something, right? How like for instance, I think it's really interesting what happened to Carl Jung. You know?
Oh, that whole story.
Yes, listen to this, people.
Man.
You might ask yourself this question.
Yeah, let's hear about that.
Is it possible to travel in time?
What do you think the answer is, Josh?
I know the answer.
What is the answer?
It is possible.
It is possible. It has happened
There you
to
go.
them.
He was talking about Carl Jung. Everybody
Confirmed.
In the 1930s, he was traveling through Italy and went to visit the tomb of a Roman empress in Ravenna. In his account of the episode, he describes how he became aware of a strange atmosphere in the place and an unexplained mild blue light everywhere.
Yeah, blue light. Interesting, right?
Let's talk about that a little bit, Mike.
Yeah, I think Josh has some interesting theories about that blue light, which is reoccurring in this sort of phenomena.
Well, not that they're very special or anything, but yeah, I do have a couple of theories about that. They say that when you travel through time, that you're traveling at the speed of light. Whether you've stepped into some sort of interdimensional portal, a wormhole, something, you got there somehow and you necessarily have reached that velocity. Okay. And what happens, they've theorized, out there, the science people, that everything in front of you would be blue tinted and everything behind you would be tinted red because you're traveling in the middle of the known light spectrum, right? As fast as it travels through the universe. And something that's interesting is like, well, is part of that problem or part of that like situation kind of staining them a bit or tinting their being? Some food for thought, Mike.
Interesting. I dig it. And that does come up again, the idea of the bluish tint.
Oh, you hear about it all the time, right?
You see orbs that color, and sometimes UFOs are often reported as having a bluish tint.
Infused with that strange pale blue light, but what caught his attention was the remarkable beauty of a series of mosaics depicting maritime scenes. He stood in front of them and discussed them with his companion for 20 or 30 minutes. On leaving the mausoleum, they tried to buy postcards of them, but surprisingly, there were none. Later on, he asked a friend visiting Ravenna to obtain pictures for him. It was then that he learned the truth. The mosaics simply did not exist. These are the mosaics that were in the mausoleum at the time of Jung's visit, nothing like the ones he described. The mosaics that Jung and his companion looked at and discussed, infused with that strange pale blue light, had existed once, but then been destroyed by fire several hundred years earlier.
So Mike, back to the theory, if I can just continue that thought. So imagine Carl Jung, and what is his wife?
A companion, he said.
His companion, okay.
Yes.
So Jung, the famous psychologist, the archetypes, right? Very famous in the world of psychoanalysis. He shows up at this mausoleum. Maybe he steps through a wormhole. Maybe there's a reason that mausoleum was built there because someone had some sort of knowledge of that place being magnificent or astronomical. And so all of a sudden he's traveling at the speed of light. And so it makes sense that everything before him would have this pale blue tint.
Infused with that strange pale blue light.
Could be that for one moment, there's like maybe this veil that that you can't see through the next dimension or whatever we have in our brain. Maybe we're implanted with something where it blocks it, or maybe we just haven't developed that muscle yet, one or the other. And as we evolve, maybe we'll be able to evolve to travel interdimensionally. But right now, if we went there, we would dominate and stink up other dimensions.
Either way, yeah.
So they're keeping us from there, or we just haven't evolved enough to
Kinda
be able to
like
appreciate
Bigfoot,
it.
Sticking up other dimensions.
So one last thing here, So the thing that's really interesting about Jung there, he basically, he and a companion, which is another common theme in a lot of these time traveling episodes, people saying they actually traveled through time when they saw people in different outfits and cars, and then it flashed.
Yeah.
There's people there's like pairs, or there's a couple or a group of people that this all happens to. So it's not like one person had a freak out, and it's hard to say that one person could have just had a weird mental glitch.
Sure. Yeah.
You never know. But so you ask the question, what do you think? What do you think Carl Jung thinks happened to him?
Jung came to believe that he had indeed travelled in time.
Uh-oh, you're losing time again, my friend. You're stuck in time again. Uh-oh, you're missing time again. You're stuck in time again, my friend. You're stuck in time again. Uh-oh, uh-oh.
Whoops, sorry about that. Little musical break.
Jung himself, right? I mean, very, well regarded.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even say well regarded. I mean, he's Carl Jung.
Yeah, people don't question.
And he came to believe that he actually traveled through time. And what's interesting is like knowing a little bit about it, but his the collective conscious. Maybe he tapped into that because he was so in tune with that concept that became available to him in a very real way. So all the other experience that had happened in the collective conscious before that was projected before him in that space. Because think about a mausoleum. People that go there who are in distress or in a state of like worship, so that's in a very intense emotional state. He's in tune with that.
I also think, in tune I like using that because I feel sometimes it's like an antenna that you can receive the message, or you can hone into the frequency, if you will. If you will.
It's as though you've reached out and you've just dipped into the psychic signal.
And so it kind of makes me kind of go back to when we talked about, you brought up portals, in that last segment about maybe there's a portal opened up, and I think that's another like interesting thing is like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend. I'm not going to bore you with all of my knowledge of portals and time travel and physics and astrophysics. But what I will say is like, it's interesting what Einstein thought, and now, he proved, and the theory that time, like space isn't like all flat and linear. It's like the weight of something causes it to sag.
Yeah, the mass of like large bodies in space create like a bend in the continuum.
Right. And so I wonder sometimes, imagine if that is our ball, or our mass is sagging, and like where it sags, is that another dimension that we're crossing over through, that we are just not on the frequency, or we're not aware of how to tune into that frequency, like it's like a radio signal,
Yeah.
And like, but other people, like, we're sagging into their dimension sort of, and they can be so advanced and knowledgeable just to pass through, but sometimes you can't, just like noise, you can't just tune out things completely, and it probably is an irritant that we're sagging there. So every once in a while they come through and fuck with us.
I feel like the sag there is just low hanging fruit, like it's as a 40-year-old man, talking about sagging balls.
Oh wow.
If you will.
So I wanted you to consider this.
Bent in just the right way, wormholes could connect two very, very distant spots with a short bridge that you could cross almost instantaneously. enabling you to travel the universe even faster than the speed of light.
Yeah, I mean that's basically what he's saying there. So I'm just imagining if like that tunnel, But I also consider this too, and I think what if the opposite is true? Like, okay, so we're sagging, but what about all this atomic, like nuclear testing, and we're blowing out these huge mushroom clouds that we're opening up in the opposite direction, a funnel, and maybe that's where they're coming, is there's a funnel going down from like a boom, and it spreads out, right? A mushroom cloud.
Yeah, no, totally.
And it's like, what the fuck is that? These guys are like, we're just going to go down in that tunnel, and they're in our presence, and they just got to, maybe some have gotten lost and crashed going back to the portal or whatever.
Who's the guy that who basically invented nuclear warfare? Is it Oppenheimer? And he said something like he basically acknowledged the terrible thing that he had done, right? And unleashed on the universe.
He knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
So there is, someone that's smart and who has a grasp of real physics, making those claims and having that knowledge, it's like, that's pretty gnarly.
Yep, definitely. I think on that note about where the explosions may be causing wormholes, there's this really insane CNN tape that I came across on the internet, on YouTube, and I'll put a link somewhere wherever we have up social media
maybe on Instagram or something.
Yeah, it's really crazy because and a hard thing to find out is what year it is, but it looks like 80s maybe. But it's this press conference, and let's just take a listen to this. It's on here somewhere. Oh, here you go.
Classified U.S. government documents and witness testimony from former or retired U.S. military personnel confirm beyond any doubt the reality of ongoing UFO incursions at nuclear weapons sites. When I say UFO, the witnesses have described these craft as disc-shaped, cylindrical shape or spherical. These objects are capable of both hovering and high-velocity flight, usually completely silently. Over the past 37 years, I have personally located and interviewed more than 120 of these former or retired military personnel, all of whom report UFO incidents at one or more of the following locations: nuclear missile sites, nuclear weapons storage areas, and nuclear weapons test sites in Nevada and the Pacific during the era of atomic atmospheric testing.
Sounds pretty serious. Sounds kind of scary, you know, sucker?
But certainly seems to be the case. That is the situation.
If your neighbor was like making these huge explosions down the street, you would send someone to figure out the fuck's going on, you know?
Especially
if you're peaceful people and you're just like advanced and you're just like, you have the ability to travel through some wormhole to come and check it out.
Well, potentially creating a wormhole, right?
Like they see us as these dangerous entities, I'm sure. They're just coming in here to like let us know. We could probably just annihilate you, zap you, fry you in with a death ray if we wanted to. We could easily just go create that real quick. We don't want to. We have to go dust one off the garage or something.
Well, the other, I think, obvious thing we have to talk about is like, is it us, Mike? Is it us coming back in the future?
Is it us coming back in the future?
From the future.
Is it us coming back in the
because
future?
Because if we know when these things are going to happen, it would make sense that these nuclear test sites would be trying to, get involved.
Yep, I agree.
And maybe that's why they're still able to do that in the future.
You're right, and I think that's a really great point, and it brings me to the next little topic, but I think we should take a little break because we have a word from our sponsors, and we also have we're gonna be doing an experiment later. We're gonna try this out, so stay tuned.
So, Mike, one thing about talking about all this stuff about, time slips and whatnot is like, it's very clear to me that theories about time travel are always in flux. But I truly believe that we do have the capacity to move at least backwards in time.
So that was really interesting before the break there when you were talking about, the fact that we're blowing these wormholes and our future selves are coming through to warn us and, maybe give us a demonstration of what they can do to scare us at these sites where we're playing around. I mean, it's a warning, don't operate these sites anymore because we're going to come and destroy them, whatever. But I think that's really interesting that because of the whole idea of the grandfather paradox, that's I think they call it, where if you were to go back in time and you killed your grandfather, if you're going to back in time and killed your grandfather, would you not be born because you didn't have the person that spawned your dad when
it's a paradox. It's a chicken and an egg thing, right? And in terms of the nuclear stuff, so if we had some knowledge of the future, like in the future, that we were going to destroy everything or destroy a big portion, at least, of humanity, then we would, ethically speaking, have the, what's the word I'm looking for? The obligation to go back and try to stop it. And so there's a chance but then the paradox comes into place. Well, if that did happen, how would we still be around to do that? So that's why it would have to be not a complete annihilation of the human race, obviously.
It's what I'm thinking is what if the case is, of course they've been able to somehow keep it from happening. I don't know, maybe not. They really can't stop us, I don't think, unless they just came in and just dismantled all the nuclear, they came down here and just took it from us. But anyway, what's another level, to exactly what's is interesting. We had parallel thoughts here, which is part of the experiment we're going to do later. Is sending thoughts. It's not really telepathic. It's more like remote viewing is the concept, and we're going to get into that. But the idea, what if, on a milder level of what you're saying is that your intuition, right? You're I have a bad feeling about this. I'm not going to get on this airplane, and then the airplane goes down. Those real rare moments people say that happened to them. What if that's your future self coming in and saying, "Don't go on that airplane"?
I mean, we giggle a little bit, but come on,
You never know.
You never know.
You never know. Okay, so we're gonna get into this thing here. Russel Targ here.
So what you want to do is close your eyes.
That's what you want to do first. Some people say when you're going to do some remote viewing, basically, guys, we're going to just a little background there. We're going to set up the phone call. We're gonna phone a friend and do an experiment.
You know what I hate though about Russell, like the conversation about Russel Targ, it really annoys me.
What's that?
Is that people say that he's a pseudoscientist, right? It's like he's kind of a soft target. Like, what are you gonna do? Sue the guy? It's like you want to be the guy who sued the scientist.
Wow, okay, that was cool. So yeah, this idea of remote viewing, like it's like there was. I should pull up the Wikipedia page so I can actually know what I'm talking about a little bit, because this is so interesting. Close
your eyes and describe what surprising thing pops into mind. Usually the first impressions are golden. It's as though you've reached out and you've just dipped into the psychic signal.
So they were doing these experiments where you train just like anything else. It's like an antenna or a muscle that you develop. They were taking military grade people. That was part of the thing they had to do. And they would go, it wasn't like, what I mean by that is like they had to be like that level of top secret.
It sounds like you're dealing with like plutonium, but you're talking about people.
Yeah, exactly.
Military grade.
Whatever,
people,
their pedigree, they have to be like a ranking official guy.
Right.
I heard that they have to be somewhat creative, like they have creative outlets like on top of that.
Yes.
And there's other criteria that are really bizarre that I heard. But some of these people is like, they got in there, like basically they were being trained to be able to like leave, speaking of target, leave their consciousness, if you will, and they'd fly to a target, and they would train by doing this in the beginning by just like working on that muscle, getting tapped into that frequency, as they'll say, is by, they like put like right on an envelope, they would write a number on there, 8628. And then a lot of people would put, knowing they would know what was in the envelope. So they somehow would leave or something with it, and they would just attach all of this energy onto it and leave it.
Yeah.
And then somehow the remote viewer, he or she could like go into that room. It could be in a Faraday cage even, where it's like they're like not in something where they're like their energy can like really leave, or they can't get like cellular signals. It's like an electronic free zone. So they basically have to. There's no whatever. So yeah, they basically, the idea is, it's like if you don't try to go, oh, you have the Eiffel Tower. The idea is to go, oh, it's like you see a pointy shape, almost like a pyramid,
right?
Or you see like a crisscross,
right?
You see like shapes, and then you start honing in and getting more and more the ability to where you can really,
that antenna effect, right?
Yeah.
Tuning in a little
frequency.
bit, right? I think it's fascinating.
Yeah,
and it kind of ties back to what we were talking about with Carl Jung and his ability to like tap into the collective conscious.
That's
right?
true. That's
I mean,
true.
you could apply the same kind of theory to that, I think.
Doesn't make any sense.
Some people say, I heard today this guy who's like, he was one of the top, he was one of the guys that got trained. He was the one, I heard an interview on Thinking Aloud. There's a great YouTube page with this guy, Jeffrey Mishlev. He's a psychologist. He's amazing.
With me is Dr. Paul Smith, a philosopher, former Army intelligence officer, a participant in the Army's remote viewing program for 7 years. He is the author of The Essential Guide to Remote Viewing and also Reading the Enemy's Mind. In addition, he is the president and chief trainer of Remote Viewing Instructional Services.
Anyway, he's like 80s, and like I like him, but he's like current too, I think. Anyway, this guy was like he's one of the guys that actually learned to do this, have this ability. And he said that they would say it was more like automatic writing, but you do automatic drawing. You would have a pen and paper, and you would just leave your eyes open, because their studies have been done when you close your eyes that you start to use your other senses and your imagination more, because your eyes are closed. So you leave your eyes open. So you're like, that's being eliminated. You're not working with like your imagination. You're cutting that off. You're trying to just receive a message. You just draw that shape. And that's kind of the experiment we could try.
Thinking about that, Mike, I think we should call Tom Child, dude, because I've had some conversations with Tom over the years, just late night style, about stuff like this, kinda, or maybe a little different. But like, I know for a fact that Tom would be down.
That's cool. I would have thought he would be into.
No,
this
he's
stuff.
totally into this stuff.
That's awesome.
Let's call it. All right, let's do it.
Hey, Josh, how's it going?
Hey, Tom, how's it going, man?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Hey, sorry to bug you. Do you have a quick second, like 10 minutes to help us out? We're doing this podcast thing, and I just want to talk to you about, like, we're talking about Russel Targ. I'm not sure if you know who Russel Targ is, but me and Mike.
Russel Targ, yeah. Who's Russel Targ?
Okay, he's this scientist who was involved in what's called remote viewing.
Sure.
So we were hoping that maybe we could get you to do a little experiment with us real quick. It's not going to take that long.
Yes.
Do you have access to a piece of paper and like a writing utensil, like a pen or a pencil?
I don't. What I have is on my phone. I could do a sketch on like the notepad or something.
That would be great. We could do that, Mike, right? Okay, that works?
Yeah,
absolutely works.
Of course. Whatever you're comfortable on.
Whatever you're comfortable with. But yeah, just open up a little sketch pad for us.
Okay.
And
okay.
We're going to give you some instructions here shortly, okay, from Russel Targ himself.
Okay.
And I'm going to add Mike on real quick to the call. So just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Thanks for being so patient.
Sure, no problem.
We're back. Hey, so do you have a little notepad open up to draw?
Give me 1 second here. Let me see, make sure I can see this on the phone while I'm talking to you. Hang on.
No problem, man. Take your time. This is going to be a fun little experiment.
Okay, I can, let's see here.
Okay, so we're going to play you a little audio from Russel Targ himself, and he's going to give you a little direction. You should be able to hear it pretty clearly. If not, we'll just reiterate what he's talking about, but he's going to give you some instruction. So just listen up real quick.
Close your eyes.
Well, I'm getting crazy.
And describe what surprising thing. These are the thoughts in the mind are golden. These are the first impressions are golden.
Okay, so Tom, did you get that? It's basically close your eyes, right? And begin to draw. We have an object before us here in the room. And we just want it like first impressions.
We've identified it as a target.
It's the target. Okay, so we're trying to get you to tune in on this object and maybe just give us a little sketch with your eyes closed. First impressions are golden.
I hung up only.
Can you do that for us?
No problem, man. I went too. My phone shut off. I think this is good for the podcast, so I think something weird's going on, man. I have a 48% battery. I'm talking to you. My phone shuts off, turns on.
Whoa.
Got a 9% battery.
So you know what? You know what? We should kind of talk about that because, like, it's one thing to be like push it aside and be like, okay, that's kind of strange, but at the same time, like, could it be, Mike, like you were saying before, with the whole antenna and tuning into these sort of frequencies and like, let's talk about cellular technology while we're on it, right?
Right.
Like, here's Tom in New York. And he's talking to us about, like doing this experiment, and all of a sudden his cell phone is down to 9% from 40.
Yeah.
Okay, so is his motivation, is his will to target where we are? Is he tapping in subconsciously? In other words, have we reached the singularity, right? Have we reached the singularity? Have we tuned into our AI, our cell phones? Have we become the cyborg?
Maybe another topic for another show, but to piggyback off of what you're saying, basically, I feel like Tom is piggybacking on that cellular signal and the battery in his phone to send that signal, which is being bounced through all of those weird-looking trees with the cellular antennas in them, all across from New York.
Exactly.
From New York.
Yes.
And
there's no other explanation.
Yep.
So, all right. Whenever you're ready, man, give us that drawing, and we're going to have you like send us a little copy of that drawing somehow, so we can check it out and compare
Can I draw and then call you back?
No, just take a second just to draw it real quick.
Psychic.
Just psychic.
First impression.
We're doing psychic stuff live. We're actually doing a live remote viewing.
Gotcha. Okay, hang on a second. Let me do this.
Okay, sounds good.
Hang on.
Guys, you are witnessing something special right now, by the way.
All right, 1 second here.
Take your time. Take a moment.
Like take a few moments.
Focus on the target.
The first thing that just psychically enters your head.
Okay, just a second. Give me 1 second. Just opening the app. All right. Here we go. Okay, now I'm going to send it to you.
Thank you very much, Tom.
We're going to do the same. We're going to send you the object.
We're going to send you a photo of the object right now.
Can you stay on the line?
Oh.
Can we multitask?
Okay.
Yeah, so go ahead and do that, and I'm gonna send you a message right now.
Okay. All right, I sent it.
Okay, thank you for doing that, and then let's see. So we'll see if we made a connection here at all.
All right. Did you get my drawing? Did it come through?
Not yet.
Oh, weird.
But we're having technical difficulties. Okay, we're going to touch base again. It's always cool talking and checking in with Tom. Sorry about the technical difficulties there, guys. He's on the other side of the country. My phone's all, our connection was a little weak, but we got some good, we made it happen.
It was a good hot take.
Here's the thing, and what Tom sent me, and I know you guys are thinking, of course, there's going to be some, similar.
We will post it.
No, we're going to post it on the Instagram.
And you can talk to Tom about it.
The 2 photos, and you can, hit up Tom in your own time. But right after our experiment, Tom texted me, as we disconnected at the end, and his photo was kind of having trouble coming through. When it did pop up, was the same moment that my photo also popped up on his phone. And I could see the little thought bubble come up, on the iPhone. He's texting me rapidly. And he says, dude, here's the thing. I didn't totally follow directions. And I was like, no, it's perfect. And so Tom sent me a series of rings, guys, stacked on each other. The object that we had as a target in the room is a little teepee-shaped incense burner. Okay, so it's a cone. It's a cone shape. It has a circular base, which, when you think about a cone, it's really a stack of circles, rings on top of each other, getting smaller and smaller towards the top. And what Tom sent me is a series of rings stacked on top of each other, getting slightly smaller towards the top, slightly. Either way, that's kind of rad in its own way. But the story continues because Tom texts me right afterwards. He says, because at first I thought in big letters, caps lock, right, triangle.
That's
so
super
I was
insane.
like, what the heck, dude? And he's like, I swear to God. But then I thought, nah, too easy. I was being rebellious. And I said, a triangle plus a circle equals a cone. And he's like, I nailed it. So you take that for what you will, guys. But, I think Targ was maybe onto something here.
If you can travel with your mind somewhere, leave your body, why can't you travel through time? Why can't you leave this dimension where maybe time doesn't exist or exists differently?
In my personal opinion, there's no beginning of time and there's no end to time, right? Call it what you will, that dimension will be around long after humanity ceases to exist. But, in the one sense, you want to, as a human, to think I need a spaceship. I need some sort of device to travel through time. No, I don't think so. I think that your consciousness can astral travel, and it has for many humans. And I think we might have proved that a little bit in this episode. So thanks for joining us, everybody.
You're losing time again, my friend. You're stuck in time again. Uh-oh, you're missing time again. You're stuck in time again, my friend. You're stuck in time again. Uh-oh.